Welcome to the Nonprofit Edge, a podcast series to promote purpose in practice. Each week, this webinar series features an extraordinary individual that provides valuable and impactful services, helping to transform the capabilities of their nonprofit clients. Join us as we explore a variety of topics, all vital to the success of nonprofit organizations. Learn and grow from the experience and expertise of our featured guests. Without further delay, let's introduce you to the host of the Nonprofit Edge podcast series, Chris Looney.
Welcome to the Nonprofit Edge, a webinar series to promote purpose in practice. Each week, the Nonprofit Edge features an extraordinary individual that provides valuable and impactful services, helping to transform the capabilities of their nonprofit clients. Through these conversations, we explore a variety of topics, all vital to the success of nonprofit organizations. And we want these conversations to help the audience learn and grow from the experience and expertise of our featured guests. Today, we're pleased to welcome nationally recognized expert at the intersection of artificial intelligence and philanthropy, Nathan Chappell. As a thought leader, author, senior executive, Nathan has been at the forefront of helping nonprofit organizations harness the power of AI to deepen donor relationships, to accelerate impact, and to lead with greater insight. And Nathan is currently serving as the Chief AI Officer at Virtuous and is a co-author of the groundbreaking books, The Generosity Crisis, as well as Nonprofit AI. And Nathan brings a unique blend of technological fluency and mission-driven purpose to the sector. His work has really shaped how some of the nation's most forward-thinking organizations approach data, innovation, and leadership in what is a rapidly evolving landscape. And in this conversation, we'll explore what nonprofit leaders really need to know about AI, not just as a tool, but as a strategic lever for mission advancement. Whether you're just starting your AI journey or seeking to take your organization's capabilities to the next level, Nathan's insight, I believe, will challenge you, inform you, and inspire you. So let's dive in. And Nathan, welcome to the show. First and foremost, really appreciate you being on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think you set the bar very high there, so maybe we have to lower people's expectations here. But no, I'm looking forward to a great conversation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. We don't have to lower any bars at all. You've set the bar high because of your expertise and experience, but man, you really have just been one of the limited number of voices in the space, and so we're grateful to you for really jumping in head first into this territory, even before people kind of realized it was a thing. So first, you were first in, and really have done a great job. And I'm interested to know kind of a little bit about framing the opportunity from your perspective. Why should nonprofit leaders really be paying close attention to AI right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, if I reflect back on when I started working in AI, it was in response to what was going on in the industry, right? And so this idea of dollars up, donors down was not new, and because you and I go way back, that the while seemingly we got more technology and we got more people to amplify the mission of our organizations, our jobs were not getting easier. And at some point I reflected back on the idea that I spent 20 years raising money, leading organizations, consulting, and never felt like my job got easier. And that was just a weird dichotomy of like, how is this possible? Because I should be better at what I'm doing. I should be working less, but that was not the case because essentially less people were giving more. And that idea that led to the generosity crisis was that, ongoing, that continuation. If we keep on doing things the same way, like we're just going to there's some breaking point at some point. And so the work in AI really resulted of that. Like we've got to figure out, we can't do things the same way and expect a different result. We've got to do something different. Now that was, to your point, before AI was cool. Like that was like when I would
Right.
I and
Before it was cool.
yeah, I brought up AI at a conference. I think it was an AFP conference in 2018 or something, and people looked at me like I had four heads. In fact,
Right.
someone at dinner said I was selling snake oil.
Right.
That there was just like all the skepticism about it, and I just kept on kind of persevering with it. But now if I think about it from the lens of a nonprofit leader, AI. Now we've always had this digital divide, nonprofit sector versus private sector. The digital divide in an exponential age becomes a chasm. And, there it'd probably be easier to list all the reasons why a leader shouldn't care about AI than the reasons
Yeah.
why they should, because they're profound. I mean, you've got things like you organizations that use AI will outperform organizations that don't. Leaders who use AI will outperform, but you'll also lose team members. I've directly known several employees that left an organization that was seemingly not progressive, that was stale, that they weren't,
Okay.
innovative, and they were innovating. They left to go to another organization. And then you've got the other side, which in my experience and from doing some AI readiness consulting, about two-thirds of nonprofit employees are using some sort of AI without their leaders knowing. And with that carries all kinds of weird emotions like, am I cheating? Am I going to get fired? Is
Sure.
this okay? It's not okay. What does my leader think? And then you've got leaders who are like, well, no, I want people to be innovative. I just don't know how to talk about it. And so
Right.
truly, everything we thought we knew about business has changed, and everything we thought was the limitation of what we could do is seemingly completely different. Like AI is this great equalizer, from generative AI specifically, is this great equalizer that makes things possible that were never possible before. And so I think leaders have this like enormous opportunity to rethink what they think they know about leadership, and we can get in deeper into
No,
like
we
some of
will.
those
Yeah.
things. But yeah,
Define for me generative AI. Like, what does that mean to you? What should I be
sure.
understanding that to mean?
Yeah, AI is difficult because it's like everything and nothing, right? When we ask like, well, do you build AI? It's like, well, no, I don't build AI, but you essentially are every time you use Amazon, or every time you use your map, you're actually training a data set. So there's two main domains. There's lots of different domains of AI. Two main domains. There's predictive AI, which is about making predictions. So
Okay.
not surprising, not super creative.
Sure.
It's about taking lots of data and making a prediction on like which donor is likely to make a gift. Predictive
Okay.
AI is machine learning and deep learning. But the advent of what we consider now modern AI is considered generative AI. And people hear it in different ways. They hear it called large language models or foundational models or foundation models. And generative AI, instead of creating more specificity with lots of data, where it's like you're not creating predictions, generative AI generates more information. So you give it an input, ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, Google Gemini, Anthropic Claude, all those are generative AI tools. Most people, unless they're living under a rock, have used one of those tools and had either some sort of like, holy moly moment, this is the most amazing thing ever, or they're like,
Me included.
or right, or it's like super scary and I don't ever want to do it again,
Good.
or it hallucinated really bad, and it's only good for writing a poem about your dog having a picnic on the moon. And so people are in some sort of level of like, okay, what is this stuff?
Fair.
What is it
Fair.
capable of doing?
Fair.
But yeah, generative AI is about creating more information. Predictive AI is about creating less information.
Okay, and generative is how the vast majority of people have
Yeah,
probably used AI, not in the predictive sense where they've
right,
used it to enhance their professional life, like we're trying to do now very often in the fundraising field,
absolutely.
but more generative, like I need to create an image that expresses this kind of theme or
Right.
something.
Yeah, or
Got it.
analysis. It's really good at analysis. If you do like donor surveys and you're looking at sentiment analysis, for leaders, if you're looking for, themes within an employee survey, it's really good at brainstorming ideas, at giving analogies for
Perfect.
things. So yeah,
Perfect. Yeah, well, that was my next question. What are the most promising ways AI is already being used in the nonprofit sector to enhance sort of mission delivery, operational effectiveness, fundraising, which is, of course, where you and I live most of the time. What are
right.
those ways?
Yeah, and if we really break this down into like two kind of like a two-sided coin, essentially. So And it took me a while to come to this, but I was deep into like buying models from companies and building models. I hired a PhD on my team at one point to like create models that predicted who is going to do something. And it actually goes back to this. Literally, it goes back to like Aristotle, who talked about this idea that the idea of giving away money is easy, but to decide when to give it, how to give it, for what purpose, and what way is really difficult. And our industry has never really figured out how to solve for that until now. It's actually really complex. It's easy to send more emails or craft more letters, but if it's not to the right person, it doesn't really matter. So the start of this is really recognizing that it didn't matter how much you did if it wasn't the right person to begin with. And with the generosity crisis, there's less and less people. So predictive AI on one side is used by almost every now mid-sized to large nonprofit organization. They're doing some sort of predictive AI, so machine learning, deep learning, to identify like who's going to do what. But then we get into generative, which is still new. I mean, ChatGPT came out November 30th, 2022. And since that came out, which hasn't been that long, we're now solving for the how. And so you've got who on one side of the coin. Now you've got how on the other side of the coin. And it's things like personalized messaging. And it's things like, coming up with new ideas on how to steward a person, or even new ideas for how your organization can show up, or even show up in different languages. So we're seeing like so many so many new domains where AI is being used, and literally
Yeah.
like two-thirds of nonprofit professionals are using it to some capacity. If it's like a donor relations person who's like, I don't want to write a description for an auction basket. I'm going to take a picture of the item and have ChatGPT write it for me, to, individualize cases for support, doing donor personas. So like actually like not just like thinking your donors kind of look a certain way, but actually doing surveys, but then having it, we've done this before where like you hire a company to come and do persona development, and ends up being like basically witchcraft. And you're just like, Sally and Bobby look like this and whatever, and you can't do anything with it. Well, like generative solves for all of that with no money, and be able to be like, I did a donor survey. Now I, like, in the truest sense, like know my population, and
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
I and interrogate that. And so still most AI is being used for content creation right now, but I would say prospect research, or augmenting prospect research, prospect development is probably second, and then a lot in the donor relations space.
Yeah, that's super. That's amazing. Well, Fulcrum's focused on broad leadership in the nonprofit space. Fundraising, connects for me to everything
Yeah.
in the nonprofit world. But there is a big, broad world of leadership in the nonprofit space, including finance program, fundraising, executive management, all of those things. And I'm wondering from your perspective how AI supports nonprofit leaders in making more informed strategic decisions. I think we talked about a couple of ways already, but are there other ways that you can think of where AI can really help nonprofit leaders with their leadership responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, if I think about it, even from my own hat, like where, I always found myself comforted by having other people that I could bounce ideas around with, right? And so I'd be in our traditional office, like when we used to go to offices, and pull people together, brainstorm ideas, things like
Right.
that. So at the lowest level, it's interesting because Harvard just did a study on this with Procter and Gamble, and they used, like, I don't know, it was 700 or something white collar workers and at Procter and Gamble. And not surprisingly, there were three kind of direct outcomes from the use of AI by individuals. And one was that they did their work, faster, not surprising. They also then did their work better. So they actually were rated for their ideas, idea generation, and quality of work higher, because AI actually does know a thing or two. But the third was actually the emotional benefits. And the individuals that used AI had almost the same benefits as someone working with a team. And so it's an emotional benefit. And so at the very, very least, the lowest hanging fruit is that a leader has, a lot of times leadership, especially in the nonprofit sector, is a quote unquote thankless job. In fact, I spent 20 years, obviously, operating in that context. And it never, in some ways, it doesn't feel like a job. It's a way of life, right? It's a calling, it's a thing you do. But with that, it's kind of also 24/7. And heaven forbid you're a leader of a nonprofit in your local community, because then you can't even go to Starbucks without someone like,
Right.
hiding their wallet from you or something. And so all this to say is that to have a thought partner that's read every book on human psychology, every book on leadership, every book on consumer behavior, and the most obscure philanthropic psychology you can imagine, actually knows a thing or two. And I've tested this because I actually did a certificate in philanthropic psychology when ChatGPT just came out, and I took the test, and then I had ChatGPT take the test also, and it outperformed me on every single domain. And so, and this is it's
And you're a
the
good,
word.
you're a reasonably good student.
I mean, yeah, I've like done a thing or two, and so I mean, I just was like, holy moly, this is like right when Chat came out, like Chat 3.0 or 3.5, and when it was kind of horrible compared to what it is now. So I think as a leader, like it can be a thankless job, a lonely job to have somebody to like gut check you, to come up with analogies with you, to help problem solve things. I mean, and then to be honest, like the thing I would use it for all the time would be if I put myself back in that role right now
Yeah.
is to offload the crap work that I didn't want to do anyway. So like that for me would be like if you asked me to review a job description, I'd rather like jump out the window. Like I job descriptions, performance reviews, like the things that
Yep.
are just like super mundane and routine. And you should require thoughtfulness, and they should require precision, but I just don't have the brain power for it. So like finding the things that you don't like to do and offloading those things so that you can actually do the things as a leader that you actually are gifted at, use that dividend of time to do more of those. I mean,
Good.
that gives life to people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Very good. I like a lot of those recommendations. I just can't escape this vision I have of AI being your companion in the office, where you're just talking to AI and AI is talking back to you, almost like that person on the other side of the
Yeah.
um, cubicle, if you
Yeah.
will, right?
Yeah.
Who you don't see, but you just talk to this invisible voice all day.
It's, I mean, and that's honestly the mind hack. I mean, the difference between people that really leverage AI and those that don't get over that uncomfortableness in the weirdness of that. And so it turns out that using voice mode, actual like speaking words, is one of the top hacks to actually adopting what's considered an AI mindset.
Haven't even been there yet.
Yeah, so do it, and it's going to feel super weird, and you might want to be in at your home when no one's there, just because you'll feel super weird with it. But when I've trained lots of people, and I've done, I mean, I do 100 sessions a year basically on AI, and honestly, voice is just something where it unlocks this portion in your brain of it's just not this like static thing, because ever since we were presented with computers, they were built to operate in a static function. Like I turn on Microsoft Word or I open Microsoft Word, it does a thing, and if it acted erratically, it'd be broken. So my mind is trained to think that, one is it's like an input, like this binary, like input output type thing. And if it's erratic, it's broken. So all of a sudden we're confronted with this technology that is by design created to be erratic. Like if you ask generative AI the same thing multiple times, it'll give you different answers, but so will a human. And so
Hmm.
it's really
Right.
trained to kind of simulate that experience. And it's very weird for us, I think, until you create that AI mindset. Um, but voice, with earpods in or whatever, when you get to a point where you're just like, hey, like, you know, what are some ideas about this thing? There will be a moment where it doesn't feel as weird, and
Yeah,
that
I
you
get it.
can, yeah. So I really
Absolutely.
encourage people. It's usually around 10 hours, 10 hours, not 10 prompts, but like 10 actual full hours of interacting with AI in an iterative capacity.
Yeah.
And that could be you yelling at it, that can be you thanking it, that could be you crying with it, whatever, like 10 hours to the point of like your brain is like, okay, this is different. And it's more like, to your point, a companion or someone on the back side of the screen that you just can't see their face that is, here to help me kind of think through things.
And stupid question, is this where you have ChatGPT, let's say, as an example, open on your browser with your headphones in and you're communicating to it, or is this where you have an app open where you're doing the same thing? Like it today, I'm not
Yeah.
talking about 10 years from now, I'm talking about today.
Yeah.
It, how does that kind of
So
work?
so today, I'll use advanced voice mode for everything. And Melinda Gates ruined this for me a couple of years ago because she wrote this article about the fact that the slowest thing that your body can do, like the slowest output, is translating an idea to your fingertips, right? It's just
Yep.
like this
Typing.
archaic, like
Yeah.
Neanderthal kind of thing of typing. And
Right.
when I couldn't unread that article, and so I got so like into using dictation, and so dictation's your first gateway drug to
Yeah.
like typing emails, to typing text messages, like voice, and it used to
Right.
suck, and it still sucks, but it's sucking less now,
So much
but
better.
it's
Yeah.
getting a lot better. But like on ChatGPT, the advanced voice mode, just like you click it and it's just this like very human sounding voice, and you're like, hey, what is this plant that's growing in my backyard? Or what, I mean, it could be something completely benign to like, how do I fix my water heater? It's got this red flashing light. Well, okay, describe it to me, whatever. To, like, I need some ideas on how to do this thing. Everything is that you're speaking is also transcribed. So as soon as you end it, the transcription is there. But I find it so much better I wake up in the morning, and this is like typical, like I wake up in the morning, I have an idea about something I want to post on LinkedIn, like just some like random weird idea or dream I had or whatever.
Right.
And if I was going to go up, get my coffee, go to my office, and then like try to knock it out and type it out, I'd lose like 80% of it, 90% of it by the time I
Sure.
actually get to
Sure.
that rhythm. But if I wake up and I grab my phone, I'm like, hey, chat, like I had this dream about this thing that was like, I think it might be an interesting LinkedIn post. Like, what do you think? And then you have this iterative conversation of like, oh yeah, you should blend in some of your experience of X, Y, and Z. So allowing this to be like that thought partner is the best way. As Microsoft is brilliant for calling it a co-pilot,
Right.
to be this, thought partner for you, for a leader, again, like I think it's a way to amplify your work in pretty significant ways.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the word mindset a little bit earlier, and I'm wondering what kind of mindsets or competencies you think today's nonprofit executives should cultivate, to lead effectively in today's AI world and in the future of an AI powered world.
Yeah. Yeah, it all comes down literally in one word. And it took me a while to come to this word. So I mean, I've been on this bandwagon for a while. I've implemented custom AI solutions for about 150 of the largest nonprofits in the country. So like the World Visions and the Shriners and Vanderbilts of the world, building and operationalize these. And I realized one day, about a year or two ago, that success or failure in every one of those implementations had very little to do with data or models. I
Okay.
mean, it started with an appetite for something different, but the success or failure had to do almost everything with people and culture. And so people and culture from a leadership perspective all comes from this idea that I can experiment in an environment that is safe. So the single word I think that differentiates success or failure of leaders in the future is curiosity. I mean, so much I've a keynote I delivered last week on building a culture of curiosity. And the thing that I find so interesting about curiosity, one is it's something we're inherently born with. We, as children, we stick, forks into light sockets, or at least some of us do,
Right,
to like
right. Yeah.
experiment in the world, and we're essentially guided. We're essentially guided to a more binary existence of like this is right or this is wrong, and like we actually our curiosity gets tamed so much so that when I find myself as a nonprofit leader, I would, I'd manage by KPIs. I'd manage by like saying things like keep your eyes on your paper, just stay focused on your goals, everything will be fine, but like stop worrying about things you can't control, focus on things you can control. Well, fast forward to, just a few years later, and you have technology that can seemingly that knows something about everything and can do almost anything. The way you lead has to be completely disrupted. So the leaders that I see now, not technologists, but leaders that I see now create a culture of curiosity that incentivizes, questions more than answers. It encourages people to color outside the lines, to rethink, biases of what they've done in the past and what is possible in the future, and create that safe space. In fact, a Children's Hospital CDO that I was with not that long ago, she is not a technologist, but creates now space for failure days. And these failure days where she brings people together is like, what are all the ways you use AI that didn't work? So that there's like created this safe space for like kind of philanthropic R&D. And so, I mean, I think leaders have this enormous opportunity in the future to create like this robot petting zoo within their organization where they can like experiment and play and not be afraid of failure, but try new things. And our
Right.
sector needs this. Like we need this in spades right now. So I mean, this is where I get excited, where the
Yeah.
opportunity is like right there.
Curiosity. I love it. Yeah. Um, it's wonderful. And it's, perhaps still one of the few human traits
Yeah.
that
Well,
left, I guess, going back to one of my old favorite movies, War Games, right, which was
yeah.
probably the same movie that got piqued your
Oh,
curiosity
for
about
sure. Yeah.
about computers and machine learning and all of that stuff. Anyway,
Well, no, I
curiosity.
mean, I think there's something there because back when in 2017 when I started working on AI, there was a book written called AI Superpowers, and this guy, really, really smart guy, Kai Fu Lee ran Google China. Like, I mean, he knows the thing or two. Like, written several books now, very sought after speaker, thought leader. In his book, he had projected that AI, he actually created a rubric, like an X and Y axis, that AI would never replace jobs that required empathy, strategy, or creativity. And so, like,
Wait, empathy, strategy,
and
or
and create
create?
and creativity, yeah. And so he had this like access where it's like if you're in these jobs, like you're safe, right? But like it was funny because it was very disruptive at the time because he had like a columnist, and that was actually a job that would be replaced by AI, and people were like, what, no way, like how,
Impossible.
like impossible. And that was already underway at the time, and what's happened since, and he was looking at it under the domain of what technology was available then, but then ChatGPT comes out, and this is truly how I came to creativity, because I looked at like empathy and creativity and strategy, and to be honest, like unless you're like the most creative person in the world or the most strategic person in the world or the most
Yeah.
empathetic, like AI actually will outperform any like marginal person at those things. And most of us are
So
like,
curiosity to you became more important.
what is the one thing, like you said, like what is the one inherent human trait? And it made me, I was on an airplane one day and I'm like what is that one inhuman trait that AI can never replace? And I'm actually a believer from a technical perspective that AI will never gain consciousness, because it is at its core, it's simulations. It will appear to be conscious and appear to be empathetic and appear to be strategic, but it can never be curious. In fact, if AI ever wonders, we're basically all screwed. Like if AI just is like becomes we get super intelligence and it starts to wonder, like we're like it doesn't matter how much you say please or thank you to your AI. It's like we're basically like net. So here, curiosity becomes this inherent trait for leaders, is that like AI can do amazing things. It can create amazing things and augment and support, but it can never wonder. That is literally the quality of a leader. That is the responsibility of a leader.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for digging in a little bit deeper there. Let's switch a little bit into fundraising and specifically sort of using AI to enhance fundraising and using AI to improve donor engagement, donor
Mhm.
stewardship, all of those fundamental tasks that a fundraiser or a fundraising organization is responsible for. And I'm wondering, what are just some of the things that people should know about how AI can strengthen identification, personalization, stewardship, all of these important things.
Yeah, in fact, I had a call this morning where we were talking about, this. And again, it's hard because AI is everything and nothing, right? So it can
Right.
do all these things. And I think so much of the overwhelm of AI, and really probably more from leaders than not, because leaders they're seen as like, oh, you should have the answer to all these things. And now if leaders don't, they're feeling like, oh my gosh, like where do I go? And I feel like I'm like falling behind in school. And at the end of the day, it's more important. In fact, well, what was the quote? Someone on this call I was on, an advisory council meeting. Basically, AI is a tool without a problem. And when it's a tool without a problem, that's a real problem, because then all of a sudden you have this tool and it's like, I don't even know what I'm trying to solve for this. I'm just going to shut it down.
Right.
Like I just don't even know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So,
Why use it if you don't know?
yeah, yeah. And so while that's true, the real key in AI success is identifying the problem first. And
Okay.
so, and it was actually, I interviewed a CDO recently from up in Long Island, and she goes, "Look, it's not like I'm unimaginative or I don't want to do these things." She's like, I'm busy putting out fires. Like if you want to like get my attention with AI as a leader, then help me fight a fire. Like identify a specific thing, whether it was like if it's about money, like generating more money, then use predictive AI and do some other things, or if it's about some other fire, find a way to like help fight that fire with AI, and then you're going to get the leader's attention.
That's
The
good.
Yeah, and so again, like it's helping in so many different ways. Like a completely predictive AI completely disrupted what we thought about why donors give. I mean, interestingly enough, I spent the last 4 years working at a wealth screening company, and my first data science project was proving that wealth was a very poor indicator of charitable giving, right? And
That's
so,
the-
right, so like, I mean, it was a weird dichotomy of this thing of like, okay, well, like for however many years I was fundraising, going and buying wealth data and essentially
Sure.
prioritizing and soliciting wealthy people was the name of the game. And still, about 80% of nonprofits, their primary way of identifying and prioritizing prospects is through wealth. But wealth, when we actually our very first machine learning project proved that wealth was less than 10% indicative of the likelihood that someone actually make a gift. So now it's very predictive on how much someone might give, but those aren't the same things. So like when we're looking at real reasons why people make gifts, they make gifts because of engagement. They make gifts of alignment and all the things that
Sure.
you've
Sure.
written,
Sure.
books on and practice, right? And so starting there and then looking at ways to amplify that. And there in our latest book in Nonprofit AI, we have so many case studies of organizations like Furniture Bank in Toronto that use generative AI photos because they didn't want to be accused of like, poverty porn or taking pictures of children sleeping on the floor and being, just that type of organization, to creating an image generative AI of children sleeping on the floor, making the case, and then disclosing, something to the effect of this image is not real, but reality is. And so in that way of like prioritizing trust and fairness, they were amplifying their mission so much so that like IKEA saw them and were like, who is this organization? They would have never been on their radar and was like, we want to
Right.
give you
Right.
like a ton of money. And so it's been
Well,
pretty
you're
cool
you're
to
you're
see.
heading into what I wanted to ask about, which are these ethical, trust-related considerations that leaders have to navigate when using AI in the fundraising process. And are
Yeah.
there some that you've discovered some ethical considerations issue? I mean, anything
Yeah.
that
They're
I
huge.
should be aware
Yeah.
of, that leaders should be aware of in this arena?
Yeah. This is the part that keeps me up at night. I mean, I can get dark pretty quick, but we,
Okay, well, don't
no,
go so dark
I
that
won't go
we lose
dark.
people.
No, I mean, it was still, I was working at a cancer hospital when I was starting this work in 2018. I remember thinking like with great prediction comes great responsibility, because the potential for bias is really significant, right? And so, one is that you could build a model that's super biased and that continues to just solicit rich white men, and we're just going to perpetuate these challenges that we already have. And to the point that there's no regulation either from the government or regulatory body in the US, that we're kind of left to our own vices. And so,
Yeah.
for a leader, one of the main things for a leader is like not wanting to end up in the newspaper the next day for the wrong reasons. For like,
Mhm.
if Taylor Swift visits, your organization tomorrow, those are good reasons. But like, which happened to a friend of mine this week. But
I saw the
for
pictures, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it was just amazing. But like for not the right reasons, like, oh, we created a biased algorithm that that perpetuated what we're trying to solve for, and that's
Mhm.
unfortunately happened a few times. And so when we think about the basic what leaders need to know in this arena is, one, is not going away. AI is here to stay, and the worst AI you'll ever use is today, and it will just get better and
That's
better and
good.
better, and just embrace that it's not a destination, it's a journey. But a leader really is there. It's incumbent upon a leader to put together either themselves or a group of people to say, okay, we are going to have AI governance, and that's usually just a 1 to 2 page
Interesting.
document. An AI governance plan, it's different than data governance, meaning that we just, we only use data for good, not evil. But AI governance is that we make sure that our AI use and our approach of AI aligns with our values as an organization,
Perfect.
that we put trust at the center of everything we do, and we keep
Yeah.
humans in the loop of every decision. And so,
Great.
super easy, get that thing done. From there, a leader really needs then to have what would be kind of an acceptable use, not policy, but like guidelines, where that, when your team comes to you and it's like, is it okay if I use ChatGPT? It's like, yes, but well, what about the free version? Or what about the paid version? And so the acceptable use guidelines help say, like, look, you can use a free version of something, but if you do that, you can't put anything confidential in it. Versus if we're paying for the version for you that's approved, that is in our environment, it's already HIPAA approved or whatever version of security you're looking
Fascinating.
for.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So because employees, honestly, like employees show up every day, want to be successful. They want to be efficient. It's not like, they want to offload the mundane things so that they can do the things that they're more gifted at, the same way that leaders are. But you have to give them guardrails essentially to say, this is like we're incentivizing curiosity here. We want you to experiment, but you need to be smart about it. And that means that nothing confidential goes into a model where we don't know where the data lives or who owns it, that kind of thing.
That's great. Super advice. Um, are there big barriers that you see, common ones that prevent nonprofits from adopting or scaling AI? It's one of those strange things where the immediate answer for the first time in nonprofit isn't because it's too expensive.
Right. No, right. That's for
Strange,
sure.
right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
usually the only reason I often get why we haven't done something as an organization. It's just too expensive. We can't afford it.
Yeah, no, I mean it for sure. I mean, it's crazy because it's democratized intelligence and completely across the spectrum. So, I think in terms of the barriers, there are leaders that are just tired and they don't want to learn something new. And if you don't like change, this is a really uncomfortable time for you because it really is. Like, I mean,
Right.
if I'm in an audience of 500 people, I'm like, how many people like change? There's like 5 people. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I have total
Loaded
ADHD.
question.
I get bored quickly, but like exponential change, like acknowledging that, we live in an era of exponential change. And that's not just rhetoric. AI is actually considered by its design an exponential technology because it actually improves itself. And it's not just one AI that improves itself. It's like a million AIs that are replicated that improve themselves. And so like this exponential pace where we feel like, oh my gosh, things are going so much faster. They are. And that leads us to recognizing that the worst AI you'll ever use today. Leaders have to embrace that. And they have to embrace like things are not the same as they were. And frankly, if you're just tired and you don't want to learn something new and you're just not, you will find yourself on the side of the chasm that you don't want to be on, the obsolete side. But I don't think it has anything to do with age. I guess again, going back to curiosity, I think it has everything to do with like, wow, there's something here, like we could rethink everything we thought we knew, and like let's experiment, and let's let it be fun. And so I think one of the biggest barriers is just not wanting to embrace the change. And again, that goes back to people and culture, not technology. And honestly, the orgs that are thriving in AI right now aren't spending more money faster, to your point. They're changing the way they think. And by changing the way they think, they're kind of flipping the script on, how do you empower an employee for success? And it should be very, I don't know, energizing. I guess it is for me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think we're talking maybe now about the same thing. My question about the role of boards, the role of senior teams. What should they be doing in terms of AI readiness? What should they be doing to bring organization along to, be a part of this exponential change that's
Yeah.
happening?
And I don't know your experience. I see it honestly. I've seen both like extremes where we were working with a pretty large university, and we were actually pretty deep in doing this predictive AI. And one of the chief development officer asked me to speak to the board, and he gets on the call, and it was over Zoom, and he said, hey, I just brought Nathan on because he wrote this book. I thought it was interesting. We're not using AI now, but I'll let you know when we do. And I'm like, we've been working with you for like, it was the weirdest thing because he was so afraid that it
Yeah,
was going to open Pandora's box and they were just
right.
going to like somehow like this is bad or and so do you see
I
that? I see
understand.
like half the people
Yeah.
I see like that are just like complete fear of like, oh, because it's like cheating or not safe or secure or private. And then the other side,
Right, or minimizes the role that they personally have
yeah,
in
yeah,
driving the ship. Like we don't have a captain anymore because we're using AI to drive the
right.
ship.
Yeah, what are
Yeah.
you here for? Yeah, so I see that like, half the time. And then the other half are like, board members who like they have these AI initiatives within their organizations. And I was with a Ronald McDonald House last year at some point, and the chief AI officer for Royal Bank of Canada was there, and he's just like, "We need to use AI in everything here at Ronald McDonald House. Like everything needs to be AI." And it was like, and he was so creative and so passionate about it, and so. It's like one of those two extremes. Like I think we're probably still in this new, like it is very much like a Wild West kind of
Yeah,
feel.
well, on every board that I've been on now, there's several over the past however many years, we haven't had one single conversation as a board about AI.
Very
Uh,
interesting.
right.
Yeah.
So, and granted, I'm not on the board of a billion-dollar multinational organization. I'm on more local community boards,
Yeah.
but who are using AI, but we as an organization have never even talked about our familiarity or
Yeah.
comfort with that. So we wouldn't be in a position to promote it
Right.
with the staff or even caution the staff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
It's
think
interesting.
most organizations are in that position.
If I think about like the age of the organization actually matters too. So like Farmling Project came out, I'm on their board. They came out of COVID and they're young college students that took a year off of, Stanford and Brown. Most of them were Stanford and Brown. They created this thing. They delivered last year 100 million pounds of food. So they've like insane. They've just grown on this like crazy trajectory.
Yeah, must.
And it's been AI first. Like from day one, they were just like,
AI first.
how do we take this little like org that like this grassroots movement and just like amplify it to the fact like Tony Robbins is making multi-million-dollar gifts to them. And so, so
Hmm.
we see that. And that's just like sheer, like, well, I mean, back to curiosity of like what's possible if we do this thing. And so yeah, that AI native or AI first kind of mentality versus like, one of the things I think that worries me the most about our sector is leaders wanting to make incremental change in an exponential age, right? So like if you're
Good
a leader,
quote. That's a
yeah,
good
so
quote.
we could put it on a bumper sticker.
Yeah, that's a
Like
bumper sticker quote.
if you want to be a leader of an org and make incremental change in an exponential age, like that the math is not going to play out well for you.
Yeah, incremental change in an exponential world. The math does not compute. Yeah, you're right. That's so good. That's so good. It's rough. What you said about that CDO resonates with me. I feel the pain of that individual that needs to tread
Right.
carefully around the subject, and I'm guessing that a vast majority of the board would, sort of doesn't want to actually admit
Yeah.
that things are changing so
Yeah.
rapidly and they're no longer knowledgeable about half the things that are going on.
Right. But and if you had AI governance and you had acceptable use policies for an organization and you talked about human first AI, that for every dollar you're going to spend on AI, you're going to spend two on people and culture. Like you're like as a leader of an organization, there are lots of ways to like mitigate that and bring your board along. And
Great.
also, I mean, you spent a lot of years consulting. A lot of times, if you can, bring a consultant along with you to ratify those things. Also, be like, hey, by the
Mhm.
way, the world has fundamentally changed from when you were in business school in 1972, and there's a new world, and we need to rethink some things. And
So good.
yeah,
Yeah, that's right. So important. Good advice. Really good advice there. So if a nonprofit leader is just getting started with AI, and I'd be interested to know as you think about the future, what's a smart first step to take, let's say in the next 90 days?
yeah, I would start by reading a book or two. I mean, truly, like, and it
Okay.
sounds so cliche, but Ethan Mollick is from Penn. He wrote a book called Co-Intelligence, which I think does a really great job of depicting a future where we are, we're embraced with this technology that can like augment our intelligence. So not replace us, but augment it. And so Co-Intelligence by Ethan Mollick is fantastic. My new book, obviously, Nonprofit AI, not to sound biased, but it's the only book that's written specifically for nonprofits and AI.
Right,
And
right.
so that it's actually written as a guide, essentially as a comprehensive
Perfect.
guide to guide people through. And
Yeah.
then, maybe take a master class or two. There's same person, Ethan Mollick, partnered with Ali K. Miller, who's a phenomenal leader in the AI space in like human centric AI. There's like courses you can take, even free ones on LinkedIn for like an hour. And so I think that's one, just like to learn something new, maybe subscribe to like a newsletter or two, even though maybe it's not your thing, but like just like subscribe. And then and there's nothing that's going to replace just doing it and get to 10 hours. If you're going to do something in 90 days, spend like have like carve it out like 10 hours of iterative time working with AI. And that means no right or wrong answers. That means just literally playing. Then it can be on the personal level, professional level, both. And then, kind of moving from there.
Yep. Yeah. And the other day you mentioned some of your favorite places to use AI. ChatGPT was one of the ones that you mentioned previously in this conversation. What are some of the other providers,
Yeah.
let's say, that you would use?
Yeah. It's funny because, and this is probably a bad thing. The concentration of like AI is very narrow. Like
Okay.
there's like
Good to know.
eight players globally
Okay.
that do this well. But ChatGPT is like that workhorse, like it just kind of does everything. And but Claude by Anthropic is
How do you
very
spell
well done.
Claude?
Claude,
Okay.
and
E. Okay.
yeah, Claude, and it actually outperforms ChatGPT in several benchmarks for people that write. In value writing, Claude is usually the clear winner. It writes
Interesting.
extremely well, gets
Okay.
to know your voice extremely well. It's they according to them very a responsible type of AI. And outside of that, it's Google has their own version, which is Gemini, which is now built into most of their stuff, and
Right. Right.
Microsoft has Copilot.
Yeah, like last night, of course, I was on Google asking what was that rocket that just went
Oh
over the
yeah,
sky, right? And it quickly came back with all of the information about the rocket, where it came from, where it was launched, who made it, size
it's
of it.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And and I shared this with you before, but those. So whether it's Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, or even Facebook, they have a model, open source model called Llama. They're all the same. Like they literally all are built on the exact same architecture. It's called a foundation model, large language model. They're all the same. They're just trained slightly different with different data, but like very little nuances. And so it's like if you're a Diet Coke person or a Diet Pepsi person, like you could argue all day long which one you like or which one's better. I mean, obviously it's Diet Coke, but so that's literally the difference. Like it's just
Well,
that
and
you
if I'm in a desert, I will take either.
right. I know, yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. So it just so you exactly you have your preference for the one that suits you best.
Yeah.
And so the point is not getting hung up because if you don't like one, try another one. There is something to say though, pick the one that you like, and then you'll develop a stronger taste for it, like Diet Coke, where you would use it more, and then it like essentially gets to know you better. And so I have three different subscriptions. I use also Perplexity, which is like an aggregator of different models. But between ChatGPT, Claude, and Perplexity, which I pay for, when I use chat, it's like we've been married for 15 years. It like knows my voice. It already knows it. It's read all my work. It's helped me create a lot of my work. And it when it comes up with something, it feels like me. I mean, if I go to Claude now because I don't spend as much time with it, it's like we're on our like first or second date, and then I'm just frustrated because I'm like, well, you don't even know me, like I just don't. And so I'll go back to chat and I'm like, I just don't have time to mess around with Claude. Like she's not
Right.
serious. And so
Right.
so pick the one that you like that suits you, give it a little trial and error, go on a couple dates with it. Pick the one, invest that time because actually it will just serve you much better in the future.
Yeah. And you don't have to put a ring on it anytime
No,
soon.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you do,
Good.
it's only $20.
Or just a string.
Right.
Yeah, $20 a month, $20 a month. Well, let's fast forward. Last question. Fast forward 5 years. I don't know. The time really matters. Sometime in the future,
Ugh.
things are still changing exponentially, of course. But what do you hope will be true about how the best nonprofit leaders are using AI to drive mission impact?
Yeah, I mean, this is an area where, again, AI is a tool, and it's going to reflect, you know, humanity like a mirror. And so I think the next 5 years will be a reflection of how we use it today. But at the end of the day, I think where AI is definitely caused some of the issues. I mean, if we think about like social media and decreases in trust and happiness and all those things,
Yeah.
it also in the wrong hands it can do all those things, but in the right hands it can amplify mission in ways that were never before possible. I think leaders that embrace this moment of having this technology that can seemingly do anything, and just get out of your zone of like what doesn't work, anything is possible. And so I see like especially small nimble organizations like doing the most because they aren't bound by like the things of
Right.
the past. Like they and truly like necessity is a mother of innovation, so like just go and do it. So I remain really hopeful at the moment. And it will be decided. The future of humanity will be decided the next 3 to 5 years. Like, are we going to use this as a tool and a force multiplier, for to amplify mission, or are we going to just let others kind of consume the rest of our time and through swiping more cat videos or whatever it might be? And so, I don't know. I'm going to remain hopeful that leaders are going to get tired of what doesn't work and try something new and realize it's actually a lot of fun. And, it, and I said this in my first book, while we didn't write the book about AI, we said that AI is the only scalable solution to reversing the generosity crisis, which
Mhm.
it is. I mean, people are amazing and they can do amazing things and they're wonderful, but they're not scalable. And so, extraordinary people do, with extraordinary tools can do almost anything. So that's just, I don't know. I get really excited about that.
Yeah, yeah. So you're cautiously optimistic
Yeah.
about the potential for greater impact in the future using AI. And I think you've given some great advice. I love the concept of building the governance plan and the sort of AI acceptable use plans because I think it's a way to engage the entire organization
Hmm.
in AI and get everybody comfortable with just even the concept of being human first, but being very comfortable and accepting and utilizing and empowering AI to propel mission, right?
Yep. Absolutely. And our missions deserve it, right? I mean, we operate in the currency of trust. It is, an imperative that leaders preserve and protect that trust. I mean, that has to be the forefront. I mean, I worry more about the organization that just jumps in headfirst and does all things AI without thinking about the impact of trust than the one who spends a little bit more time in thinking about, okay, let's do this, but let's do it right. Let's make sure that we put humans at the center and ensure that we promote and protect trust in everything that we do.
Yeah. Good. Great advice. Great advice. And I think that's an appropriate place to end today's conversation. So thank you, Nathan, for sharing your experience, your expertise with our group around AI and nonprofit leadership. We're grateful to have learned from you today and look forward to continuing to learn from you in the future. I know you will continue to be a leading voice in this particular arena. So thank you, thank
Awesome.
you, thank you. But that brings us to the end of the episode of the Nonprofit Edge, a webinar series, as I mentioned before, to promote purpose in practice. Please like and subscribe to receive more content from us, content connected to nonprofit leadership. We have this webinar and podcast series. We have our podcast Lead for Good. We have our podcast Mastering Fundraising, all designed around talking to and learning from the best leaders out there in the nonprofit space. So we'll see you all again soon. In the meantime, wishing you all the best in your efforts to be on the forefront of nonprofit management and leadership, and hoping you do great in the future. And until next time, See you soon.
Thank you for joining us for the Nonprofit Edge, a podcast series to promote purpose in practice. We hope you've enjoyed this presentation and learned some important lessons from our featured expert. We always want our content to be informative and to position nonprofit leaders to succeed. Please join us again for our next podcast. In the meantime, we wish you all the best and encourage you to learn more about Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership by visiting our website at www.fulcrumleader.com.